Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. I almost screwed that up again. We appreciate you tuning in. My name is JJ Crowder, and I'm here with my co-host, Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
Yeah, we appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification button. Tell a friend about us. Tell a Star Wars nerd about us. Because, woofty, we went into some deep cut shit today. This week, so looking forward to it. Yeah, it's the last week for Ahsoka. I'm sure Alec
finally,
and I hate him for it because now I'm just more. After this episode, I'm just more bought in. I just want more, like right now. So let's go ahead and get it over with. What are you gonna gripe about this week?
They didn't earn it.
What do you mean they didn't earn it? Didn't
this
earn what?
Payoff, the cliffhanger, and everything. They did not earn it.
Oof. Oh. we have a previous member, current / part-time. I don't know what the fuck to call him, but Alex, Star Wars hater.
Nope, I'm a Disney Star Wars hater.
No, that's fair. I think you're more of a Disney hater, and so it just falls within because Star Wars is there. So
I'm a hater when they take the easy, lazy, quick, fast, and in a hurry way out.
No way, dude. There's so much lore in this. Like,
there is a bunch of lore.
Some massive stuff, dude. Like, yeah. This is crazy.
But this is episode 8.
Yeah, but that's when you're supposed to get the freaking payoff.
Yeah, but they didn't earn it through the first 7 episodes.
Oh, see, I have to disagree there. Like,
you can disagree. That is fine.
And I will.
But you have this useless season leading up to a point where you get this great payoff, but you didn't earn the stuff that gets the payoff.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, dude, we have a third member. Hold on. This could get spicy all of a sudden. Welcome to
Guess Who's Back?
Matson Einer.
The real Jin's here to defend JJ. You know, Alec, I've heard you've been poo-pooing all over this, and I have
exactly
all of this, and I am here to defend JJ's honor. This
Perfect.
is a good show.
Why do you like it?
Why don't I like it?
That's not an answer. Why do you like it, Matson?
Yeah, why do I like it? Thrawn is one of my favorite Thrawn is one of my favorite cerebral villains.
Okay, Thrawn was in 3 episodes for a few minutes,
and he made an incredible impact. Calculated.
Yeah, but I'm saying there wasn't a payoff for this end of the lore.
I just feel like
what made this show so great? That's the question.
Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin Skywalker touched my heart in ways.
Fan service because Filoni wants to remake his live-action Clone Wars movie, so he's sticking Hayden Christensen in anything he can to get it.
And we'll take it.
Also, that rumor is not true, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure he's doing it.
Well, he might now, but it wasn't a pre-planned thing that this was.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but that's, just throwing that out there. That wasn't.
So fan service now equates to good TV, Matson.
You know what this is sounding like? I hate to say it, but you sound like a reincarnation of our good friend Javier Ortiz.
See, you're going to throw that out there, but you can't say I'm wrong.
How can you say that you're right?
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying you can't say I'm wrong.
But why? I haven't listened to every episode with you in JJ. I just heard through the grapevine. Why do you feel like, especially now, the payoff was not earned? Because I enjoyed episode 8 as well.
Perfect. So episode 8, I will say, I enjoyed more than anything else. My problem is that each of these episodes is 45 minutes to an hour in length, and they're not achieving anything except for fan service and fan service. So we have this deep cut lore that would be really great, but they take so long to get to it that now it's like, oh, hey, here was 7.5 episodes of really just mediocre at best content to get to this great lore payoff. Now get excited about next season, which is perfectly fine to do cliffhangers like that if the previous 7 episodes back it all up. But this right here could have been a straight to TV hour-long special of everything they covered to push it out. And we'd still get the same exact lore, same exact cliffhanger, the same exact excitement that they're bringing in with an 8-episode season. That's my problem, is that it's not good TV. Because they could have condensed these 8 episodes even into a movie. And they could have covered all the good stuff. Thrawn could have still been in it. You just cut out all this extra kind of filler content / garbage. I mean, we figure out why Ahsoka decides not to train Sabine in episode 8. Could have done that in episode 1 and still not lost it in the story. And that's my issue, is that this isn't good TV other than it being Star Wars.
So I've had a lot of grief, like with the feeling. Yes, there's a lot of fan service, and I've bitched about it throughout our episodes. Like,
You have.
that there's been a lot of unnecessary fan service. In fact, I went off, I think it was episode 2 or something. I lost my shit on shitty Star Wars fans because I feel like Filoni did have to do, he kind of was doing this balance thing. He had to please the freaks that need all this extra shit that, in my opinion, isn't necessary for a true Star Wars fan. And I'm not talking about the Hayden Christensen stuff, Matt, and you and I have talked offline about the fact that I love that he came back. I love everything that involved him. I'm talking about like the little hints and the drops and even like the stuff that took place back in the New Republic area of the show. Like, there's just pieces that had to be there to please the psychotic fans of Star Wars, the ones that are probably bitching about the fact that they didn't like the show still, even though he did it for them. But he also needed to introduce and do good television, which is, in my opinion, what he's very good at. And I like this. And I say all that to say that the payoff for me was we got to episode 8 and I went, okay, now I know why all of that content was there. Here's my problem, and I think this is the problem across the board with streamers. My bitch now is streamers, because Netflix ruined us all for television by releasing 10 episodes all at once or 30 episodes, all whatever it was. Because we were able to binge, we want it all right now. And I'm guilty of it. I would have rather you give me all 8 episodes at once and let me binge all 4 hours, because then when I get to 8, I'm satisfied. I will give you, Alec, that this streamer dragging shit out to bump their streamer ratings every week is frustrating, because they're still building these shows for binging versus what old television used to be, where they did it episodically because that's how they had to do it, because they only got an hour of airtime. So they had to get you to come back every week. They don't have to work that hard anymore for the streamers, and especially at Disney Plus and Star Wars. So I'll give you that as a separated week after week television show, it doesn't work as well as it could. Mattson, I wish I was you and watching it. Like, I feel like the next Star Wars show, we're not doing lives like this, because I want to wait, cut myself off from all the spoilers and everything else, and then binge it all at once, because I think that I won't have near the amounts of problem that I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll chime in. So, Alec, I know I'd love to come at you, but I will say sound words in the logic that JJ is agreeing with, because I watched 1 through 7 in, I don't know, 2.5 day, as much as I could have watched if I had time to have done it all right then, I would have done it, but it was effectively, I just binged it. And now thinking back and trying to be objective about it, I know I would have griped about the pace of play. And the thing that I also don't have is I haven't watched Rebels and Clone Wars to the extent that you all have. And so I play video games with JJ. I had to ask him some clarifying things, because I knew it, but I needed to piece some of those things together. And I think that worked in my favor, because I wasn't already like they're rehashing some of this. This, like, we already know this, like, just get past this. I didn't have that weighing down on me. And the fact that I could just watch it all at once, because what would have really pissed me off is when I knew Anakin was coming, waiting a whole week for that to happen, the way that they did it would have pissed me off. I know it would have if I was on this on a week to week basis. So I have to give you that. But watching it in binge succession to getting to the points I wanted to get to, I quite enjoyed it because I felt like they introduced people at the pace I was ready, but I was able to just click on to the next one. But if I had to wait between weeks, as JJ was saying, I think it would have been a problem.
I'm intrigued. Next Star Wars show, let's do it, JJ.
Yeah, I'm in. And then we'll do like a post talk about it, like a wrap up. Because I really feel, having watched this now, like I would have, and then listening to Mattson talk about it too, as he's asked questions and stuff. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't have to wait week to week. And that's, for me, I think what really caused it. Because to your point, and we've talked about this for 7 episodes, I agree that there's not, at the end of every episode, there's only one episode, and that was episode 4 to 5, where you get this cliffhanger of Anakin, and then you have to wait. That's the only time I'm like, I cannot handle. I need to see this. I'm excited for it. Everything else, I'm like, well, I guess we'll be back here next week. You know what I mean? And then we'll see what happens. And I love Star Wars content, whatever it is. But yeah, I just think streamers and not getting out of the mentality of binge watching and just producing content that way has ruined what we used to consider television and episodic television.
What makes me, like with Loki coming out tomorrow, I'm excited, but I also know I'm like, well, do I bank a couple of episodes and so I can just
bank episodes
because you already know it's gonna be slow, it's gonna be a setup, and then you're like, oh well, that was it. Like, oh man, like come on now. And I know that one of the things I have enjoyed since I've taken a little bit of break from this, I've done that with a few shows, and it's been a lot better where we have done these live things, and it's been like, man, like I think JJ's on. I think it's just a new wave where we almost have to treat it that way because we're suffering as a viewership from a week to week basis where old shows before, like JJ talked about, especially when he like even Alec as well. We're not that young. You had to have a payoff. You had to give the reason to turn your TV on a week from now because you couldn't record it. And now they're just like, whatever. They'll be there. Yeah.
They were written with that fact in mind. They knew they had to do that, so they wrote it differently. And now they don't. Now they write it for the binging because they know some people are going to do that. And I'll tell you right now, Alec and I were talking about doing, because I'll tell you what, I had this epiphany today while I was working and I was doing some stuff and I was filling up my tea and I'm like standing there and I'm like, why did I have such a hard time? How am I going to explain this whole thing? And I sat there and I went through this binge thing and then I went, we were going to do Loki lives episodically and I'm not going to do it. Because I thought back, and here's what triggered me, is I remembered I loved the Loki first season. It was great, but I fucking binged it. I waited. I didn't watch any of it because I was like, do I really want to watch a show about Loki? And then I kept hearing good things. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to watch it. Well, I watched all 8, 10, whatever many episodes, like I binged it and I loved it. I haven't binged one of those since. And the only one, in my opinion, that has been not built for binging that worked for me episodically was the one with Vision and WandaVision, because that one was so wildly different than anything that we've ever seen that I was like, this is cool. And the episodes were like 25 minutes long. So it wasn't like I was like, okay, I have to watch all. It was like, oh, that was a quick little bite of fun television. Oh, it's a baby. I love the babies. It's Banksy's. So yeah, I'm telling. I don't want to do lives, Alec, because I want to enjoy Loki. So I'm
on board. Let's not do it.
I think I'm gonna wait, and we can do it after a.
Well, I'll be there for that then. I mean, that's easy. Yeah. I think that's great, but I really think you hit the nail on the head in having just Alec kind of brought it to the stage and you hit it home. I feel like that's just the way you kind of have to watch these things these days because we've done it. I mean, a lot of the shows we've done in the past, it's felt long and like some of them, especially the ones that are like an hour and 15 minutes. Like I just watched a mini movie, but not a ton was accomplished here. At times it feels like they're abusing us as a viewer just because they know that it's a big name, it's a big show, they're gonna watch. And I wonder with how all these streamers aren't making money except Netflix, if they're going to have to change and revert back to some of the old cliffhanger style, especially with the writer strike and things like that, to drum up more engagement. I just wonder if there's going to be a shift a little bit back to it, or if it's too far too gone, which it probably is. But I'm curious about that.
They're just charging more. They've already talked
Yeah.
about the fact that the writer strike is ending and they make a deal and now they have to pay out more.
Well, like Disney Plus is like
Streamers.
25% more. It's like ridiculous. We're gonna go past what it was with cable
Yeah.
shortly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I keep watching because I don't have cable. I've been a cord cutter for a while, and I'm sitting there going, okay, which ones don't we watch? Because I'm gonna have to get rid of them because they're starting to charge enough that I'm like, it's not worth having when I don't watch them all. So, but Star Wars, I have to talk about the fact that there was some crazy. This show at the end of this episode has me so excited for what's to come, because Filoni like opened the bag of Legends continuity and went, it's all out there and I'm not afraid to use any of it. I mean, he's hinting, he touched on the Mortis gods, like we saw the statue, the big
Yeah, Jay, I was
statue.
gonna say I love Star Wars, but I don't know, like you, like what if you were to create like a branching tree of possibilities of what they could do from this? What does that really look like?
Going to the maw.
Yeah. So like we see them come back into the known universe of Star Wars with the Chimera, the Star Destroyer, and the big, ring, whatever. Anyway, yeah, the Eye of Sion. So they're back at, and my mind just went blank, the home planet of the sisters, the witches, Dathomir. That's a whole, and I think now that I know that we see them going to Dathomir, I really believe that the cargo are Night Sisters. Or
what I was gonna say, is it just Night Sisters they transported, or what else could it be?
Or it's a whole army of Dathomiran men like Maul.
Oh.
So, or a combination of the two, right? But the way that she has the dumbest name for Star Wars because it's so normal. The other witch that they gave the juice to in the 8th episode? Why can't I think of her name?
Morgan
Elsbeth. Yeah. So when she says for Dathomir, I went, oh, son of a bitch, they're trying to repopulate Dathomir. But I had a little conflict there. I'm like, okay, I understand that Thrawn is different than any other Imperial leader, and he didn't always agree with, in fact, he thought Palpatine was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah. And he had respect for Vader, but only because Vader just did whatever the hell Vader wanted to do. But he also didn't agree with the way, because Vader would just sacrifice anybody. He didn't care. And that's not Thrawn. So I'm like, but the Empire's who wiped out Dathomir because the Night Sisters were a threat to the Emperor. So I found it interesting that they're allying with Thrawn and the Empire. But I guess, like I said, Thrawn's a different leader. But that's what I see. There's one. They're going to repopulate Dathomir with Night Sisters / Mauls. I was like, that's a scary army. 2, and I'll stick with the more in the universe stuff that we saw, but like 2, the connection between, I like the full circle. I wish, to Alec's point, that they had visited it more or deeper or earlier throughout the show and consistently throughout the show, this whole Sabine and Ahsoka issue because I did feel like even though they got to that good place at the end, I was like, you're just skipping over what feels like a lot, and we didn't get to see a lot. And I would have rather seen a little more there, but you have that connection, which I'm okay with. I'm glad we're there now. And I'm also glad we're not dancing around this whole Sabine being able to use the Force thing. Just if she's going to be Force sensitive, have her be able to use it, and then have that frightening piece be that she's afraid, Ahsoka's afraid she's going to turn because of the trauma and the shit that she's been through. I think the bigger we know how those of us that have read the Legends or the current, we know how the Thrawn thing will play out to a certain degree, coming back to lead, and we know where it all ends up. What's crazy is Baylan Skoll, I think that they're setting up for the future of Star Wars, this long-term, down-the-road stuff, because I didn't want to believe it because it's an interesting character, but it's also like a super OP character. But there's a character in Legends called Abeloth, and Abeloth was, let me back up a second, because the Mortis god, so we saw the statues, right, that Baylan Skoll was standing on. The hand that was pointing towards the mountain, the eerie, creepy mountain with the light coming out of it.
Made me think of Lord of the Rings.
Very much so. But it also looks like, or that was a statue of the father, and then next to him was a statue of the son, and then there was a statue of the sister, the daughter, but the head was broken off of the statue. Those are the Mortis gods. They're the chosen ones, or the ones, and like there's a whole 4 episode arc about them in Clone Wars that was very heavily dealt with Ahsoka, and then you see Morai again, which was really cool because I was like, how are we not seeing Morai, which is the owl / convor bird that she sees at the end, and that's the spiritual essence of the daughter, because the daughter sacrificed herself to save Ahsoka in those episodes. What ties the Mortis gods to this character Abeloth is Abeloth was technically the mother within that trio. So there was 4, and she drank from this fountain that would guarantee her immortality, and by so doing it corrupted her, and she is in Legends continuity the most powerful Force user, especially dark side Force user, that's out there. She also had a very powerful form of universal telepathy. Like that's one of her strongest things is telepathy. And the father, son, and daughter had to trap her. Once she was corrupted, they were the only ones that could keep her at bay. So they would keep her trapped. And every 1,000 years, she had the opportunity to escape, and they would have to go through this process. Well, now there's nobody to hold her in check. Maybe not. But I think that's where it's headed. A lot of people were speculating that at first, and I was like, man, that's a big thing to move. But it's starting to feel like it might be her, since there's such a heavy connection to the Mortis gods with those statues and pointing towards. And Abeloth was heavily worshipped by the Night Sisters in Legends continuity as well. So it's all pointing that direction that we're going to see Abeloth. And she's no joke. And she's ugly and scary. And she's no joke. So that's another big branch. And I don't think that's going to be part of Filoni's movie thing. I think we're going to get a bunch more TV series stuff that leads us to Filoni's movie. And then we have already confirmed that there's going to be a new Jedi movie. And I think that's where we start to see these later and longer term plan is where Abeloth and probably some other outside of the universe aliens, probably leaning towards some of the stuff from Legends, comes from.
Starting to sound like Marvel.
It's getting there. And then the caveat to that is the whole thing with the Mortis gods in Clone Wars is that the father wanted Anakin to take his place as the balance, because the son was the embodiment basically of the dark side. The daughter was the embodiment of the light side, and the father, they were always in conflict, just as the light side and the dark side. And the father was there to keep balance. And so he wanted Anakin to take his place to keep balance. Instead, because Anakin's Anakin, and they hurt Ahsoka, and it was just this big, they were threatening Obi-Wan, Anakin kind of lost his shit a little bit. And then the son showed him the future of him as Vader, and he got pissed, and then he basically killed everybody. So all of the Mortis gods, with the exception of a little bit of the essence of the daughter within Morai, that bird, are gone. So there is no one holding Abeloth at bay anymore, so she can escape. But I think with seeing Anakin's Force Ghost, do we have a small caveat that maybe with Anakin's help, Ahsoka could capture. Because I also feel like you have, and this is me being very speculative, Ahsoka, the light side. She's Ahsoka the white. Baylan Skoll, fallen Jedi, leans toward the dark side. And even the son wasn't necessarily evil. He just leaned toward the dark side. And then you have Anakin in the middle, has played both parts. And we saw that in his episode in The World Between Worlds, where he can play both parts and keep that balance. Do we have a new set of Mortis gods, right? I feel like that might be where we're headed, is Ahsoka becomes the daughter, Baylan becomes the son, Anakin is the father in their balance. And then they can then recapture and maintain Abeloth again. There's my theory. Those are the big ones, I think. That's what I caught anyway. And of course, then Ezra going home. That was cool. Though, what a dumbass. Like, take off the helmet before you come out of the ship.
Drama queen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's such an Ezra thing to do, though.
Why did Thrawn soldiers, their armor look cool? It was like the gold thing. Like, why did they do that? Was that just to make them look cool?
It's because they were there for 10 years, 9 years. And so, like, as it broke down, they just patched
Used
it
whatever
up.
was there.
Yeah, and then got resurrected, a few of them.
So that was cool because we've seen the Night Sister magic do that before.
Yeah.
But I was struggling so hard because they couldn't make up their mind if they were like rigid zombies or sprinting clones. And it went back and forth and back and forth. And because it was cool, right? This scene where they're like all rising up and they have this rigid kind of motion, which is from the animated series.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and then you get some who are just able to run up the steps like it's no big deal, while the guy in front of them is doing the rigid motion. And I was going, oh, who put this through quality control?
Yeah, there were some small weird things like that, because I noticed that too. I did laugh my ass off though at the Night Trooper Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
Because, or Night Trooper Death Troopers. So they've gone through all these names because the Night Troopers, the only reason they call them Night Troopers is because the Death Troopers was already taken. They're the ones that were in all black. And so I was like, that's hilarious. We got 2 Death Trooper Night Troopers. I was like, that's funny. But the other one that bothered me a little bit was Sabine, the actress. And I've bitched about this with Ahsoka as well. Like, I wish the actors had spent a little more time. And I know we're spoiled because Anakin, like Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, were all in on learning the choreography and the fighting, and they had months and months and years to practice it and get ready for it. But sometimes the choreography is so bad, like especially Sabine in this episode. Like, there were a couple times I'm like, that looked horrible. And then, but I was impressed because Morgan Elsbeth's character in The Mandalorian, when she had the staff, looked terrible. But then in this episode, that fight was dope. Like,
pretty cool.
With her having Talzine's sword, which was also a cool callback to Mother Talzine from Dathomir when she takes on Palpatine. That was cool.
I'll tell you the last thing that really kind of bugged me, and it's going to sound stupid based on how I acted last week. But so last week you had Ezra Bridger turn down a lightsaber because the Force is his weapon.
Yeah.
I thought it was dumb because give him a rock or a stick or something. But it's a unique thing. If you're going to go that way, lean into it.
Sure.
And first thing in this episode, he's building a new lightsaber.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why have that last episode? Have him take a blaster, the saber, temporarily.
Yeah.
Because it would have been, if you lean into that, like him using the Force primarily as his weapon, that is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I still think you give him a stick or a rock or something. But if you're going to go that route, really lean into it.
Yeah.
And instead, it's like, oh, he didn't want that lightsaber. He wanted his lightsaber.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically that was his lightsaber, but he gave it up. So he wanted his new one. For me, it felt like they wanted to have that scene where, God, I'm struggling with names. Hu Yang was talking about the fact that he knew Kanan and even mentioned him as Caleb Doom instead of Kanan Jarrus. And so he made that mention. I feel like we need this moment. So how do we make that happen? And that's how that, I was like, okay, that felt a little forced. I'm with you. Like, I'm glad he didn't take the lightsaber. I just wish he would have said, I gave it to you. You keep it. I'll figure it out. Right. Like that would have made more sense to me instead of the Force is my ally. But I think they were trying to tap into some Ezra humor because he would say silly shit like that in the show and it worked. It didn't work in this case last episode. I'll give you that.
have him pick up a stick and be like, I'll use this instead.
Yeah.
And then hit someone with it.
Who needs a lightsaber? Like, yeah, because that's the kind of goofy shit that Ezra would have said. But yeah, anyway, I loved it. Like, I can't wait. I'm with you to a degree, Alec. I wish they would have gotten places earlier. I also think, I less think that they could have done a movie. I just think it could have been 6 episodes instead of 8. And truncate some things and like take some things that were unnecessary. Like I said, some of the extreme fan service that even I'm like, I didn't need that. If I look at that and I go, I don't need that, you didn't need it. You know what I mean? Because like, I'll eat up almost anything Star Wars. But there were a couple moments where I was like, That was
one thing that I thought was interesting is, and I've always struggled with this with Star Wars, I brought it up in the past, is since the Star Wars was created late 70s, early 80s, the future tech that they have there at times looks so dumb now. But what was confusing but cool at the same time in this, they had tech with like the tracking where their movements, where they're at, where Thrawn was like, show me where they're at. And they had that hologram and did that. Like, you haven't seen that in the Star Wars universe before. And that at times I was like, well, that's really cool. But I was like, well, that doesn't really line up when then they show on the circle ship thing, they've got like, the grid and like the lines that you see, and you're like, what the frick are they looking at? Like, there's nothing that is so not technologically advanced. And so you see that versus what Thrawn's looking at. And I think I'm curious to see what you would say, JJ, as a Star Wars purist, where it gets hard for me as a viewer now, where I'm like, I know they have to keep it the way it was, but at the same time, like, I need you to like try to move past it. I feel like they did a little bit of that this time, and I was okay with it. I was like, because that's what I expect to see, is the futuristic shiz that it needs to be, not what it looks like in the 80s, because we didn't have a good imagination.
Yeah. Or we just didn't have the right shit to
sure.
build off of. I think like that one, and I think we've talked about this too. Like, I laugh at that sometimes, like at how janky it looks, but I don't mind that. And this one's explainable because Thrawn is a genius, and Thrawn actually has, and they really played into it with his new story versus the old Legends story. They kind of touched on it in the old Legends, but in the new books, he was trying to combat the Death Star. He thought it was a waste of time. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do these new TIE fighters that had warp capability. Warp. Jesus, I'm in the wrong universe.
Star Trek.
Yeah, Jesus. I'm struggling tonight, boys.
It's because I'm back. I threw you off.
I know. Yeah. Well, and I was thrown off from the beginning. That had these were cool TIE fighters, and I don't even remember what they called them. They had a special name for
Interceptors.
Probably was the Interceptors. They look very similar to Vader's TIE fighter, and then even more similar to Kylo Ren's TIE in those movies. So, but he thought those would be more effective, and he designed them and built them, and then he uses them to some great effect in one of his books, in the 3rd book of the first trilogy, I think. And so he has a little more tech because he designs that stuff and he looks at it and builds it into it. So like it's what I looked at, that little grid system, like we were looking at chess, almost like him looking at the chessboard. I looked at that and went, I bet you that's a Thrawn design, some sort of sensor that he.
And I'm cool with that. I just wish I'm cool if they lean more into trying to just go forward.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if they did that, especially in like the newer stuff, like when they do like the new Jedi series or movie or whatever, if there's some more fancier tech, because we're farther along in the timeline, right? Like, I completely understand. I laugh though when prequel trilogy came out, and some of the tech and shit was cooler looking and more badass looking than the original trilogy. And I get, one, the technology was different, but two, they weren't in the middle of a war. So when you're in the middle of a civil war like that, you just piece the shit together and make it work, right? So they're in a big time peacetime in the start of the original or the prequel trilogy. So they were able to have shiny chrome ships on Naboo. Anyway, I am excited for the future of Star Wars as long as Dave Filoni's involved. I do wish that the format was a little different. I wish they'd figure out the format, but I think that's true of all new television, Marvel, Star Wars.
Yeah, Marvel's guilty. I mean, geez,
Yeah.
Marvel's so guilty of the same thing.
Yeah, I think Disney's guilty of
That's
it.
not a saving grace.
Yeah. I just think it's, like I said, I think if they can figure that out, I'm happy with the content. I just think they need to figure out how to deliver it a little better.
When is the next Star Wars movie? Do we even know? Well, I'm sure we know, but kind of know.
We don't know. I don't think they've announced dates yet. They've announced a lineup.
But everything gets pushed back now.
Yeah, we don't
So
know.
We're probably talking 2026.
I think 2025 was the first thing that we heard. So maybe they pushed. I'm not sure. I know the Acolyte, I think, is the next major TV show, which I'm kind of interested. Like, I'm interested because it's a different timeline, because it's technically a few hundred years before the original trilogy, or actually before the prequel trilogy. It's like part of this new High Republic that they've been building on. There's also some weird rumors that whole show might be canceled, but then there was like a preview. I think they were like, we don't know if we want to release this because we don't know if it'll work or not, because the High Republic itself hasn't worked very well as far as the books and the comics that have come out with the High Republic. So I think they're running a secret campaign where they're like, let's see if it'll work. So they leaked the trailer for the Acolyte recently. I think it was yesterday or the day before. So Ahsoka's coming to a close. They leak. The timing's interesting. That trailer gets leaked. It's a show
Seems rather convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a show that's been rumored to be canceled. But if, the internet goes wild over this preview, maybe we release it.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say, I've talked to JJ about this, but I'm a sucker for the rebirth of Hayden Christensen in terms of the Star Wars universe, and I don't care what it is. I mean, I'd love to see him in something, and I know that live action Clone Wars, people don't really maybe want that because the animated version was so amazing, but shoot, dude, give me something else, man. I'll freaking watch it. I feel like he was awesome. I know I wasn't on this one you guys talked about before, but I felt like he's in tune with the character. I want to see more. I will pay to see more, and I just want to put it out in the universe. Like, I freaking love to see it happen.
You know what I want? And Alec, I think you get behind this too. Probably you too, that's it. Did you guys ever watch the animated one of Marvel called What If?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some
like
of
where
it.
they did like the weird different universes. I want a Star Wars What If. Like, how dope as shit would it be if we had a whole episode of Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka are all part of the Empire, like loyal members of the Empire, and are just wrecking shit, right? Or what happens if Obi-Wan loses on Mustafar and we get full-on Darth Vader not in a suit and hindered by Palpatine? Like,
Palpatine would probably die then.
Yeah, that's the shit that I want. Or what happens if, like, and in that same one, Padme's like, let's take over the fucking universe. Fuck it. I'm in, dude. Like that, I would love a Star Wars What If. I think that would be dope as hell.
I get behind that.
Yeah, just cause. Like, I don't even need, like, just do it cause. Cause why not, right? Because I think that could be interesting. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I enjoyed Ahsoka. It had its issues. It wasn't perfect, but I'm a Star Wars nerd, so I did love it.
Better than She-Hulk.
Dude,
duh.
The dump I took yesterday was better than She-Hulk. It's probably the same color too. Fuck. So stupid. That was a terrible show. Terrible show. Yeah, Mattson, it was good having you back, buddy.
It's good to be back. It was fun. I told Tay, I was like, I think they're recording today, and I checked the time. I was like, I'm gonna hijack this mother effer.
I like it. I haven't seen Alec with that face on in a while. Like, where he's just like, this motherfucker. It was great stuff. All right, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us if they're not watching us live.
Happy to. So thank you for tuning in to our review of episode 8 of the Ahsoka series. Hopefully the last episode after recorded this on topic. JJ and I are never going to agree, and apparently Mattson and I won't either. But I will ask the wider interwebs, why did you like Ahsoka? I'm curious. Give me a good reason. I will rethink my verdict if it's something other than it was Star Wars content.
Hey,
It's gotta be. Why was this good TV? Tell me. I want to hear it.
I'll ask ChatGPT.
Also,
shortly.
there we go. You can ask ChatGPT. Also, we just wrapped up a month of themes, and we're starting a new one here in October with movies with great soundtracks. Be sure to check those out every Monday on YouTube. And a special thank you to our current patron, Chad the Dick, for his selections. We have a great upcoming month with biopics in November, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see me shit all over JJ's picks. With that, I will send it back to the Sultan of Swat, the Mauling Monarch, a JJ.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, this was fun. I'm sad it's over, but I'm glad it's over. And with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Wait.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!